assembled and presented to the parole commission. They review everything in that report. Now, we'll be in recess for a moment, and then we need to reassemble to take into account matters relating to counts 3, 4, and 5, and the possible commitment to the Wisconsin Department of Health and so forth.
The Northland has its own yellow brick road, and it leads to a familiar face, that of Grand Rapids native Judy Garland. A town museum immortalizes her with a permanent exhibit, but this weekend, Northlanders can get to know the girl we once called Dorothy a little better.
Her family lived here for 12 years, and her father owned the new Grand Theater. The building is still here after 70 years. And the house that they lived in is still here after 70 years. So her history is still here.
And this weekend, even more of Garland's history will be on display. One of the festival's highlights is the largest collection of film and performance costumes from the entertainer's career.
Along with this was called her lucky jacket, because the year before this, Judy was told, she was very ill, was told that she would never work again. She would be a semi-invalid. 9 months later, she was back on stage at the London Palladium wearing this jacket.
The museum traces Judy Garland's career through scripts, sheet music, and old photos. Fans who come here can also get a chance to see Garland in action. It's these performances that still draw fans from across the world today. Fans such as Norman Webster, who traveled from England to the Northland for a chance to revive his memories of Garland.
Was seeing her at the Dominion Theatre in London and being about 6 rows from the front, and her sitting on the side of the stage singing over the rainbow. I think it was the most emotional and wonderful feeling I've ever experienced.
Garland's songs, movies, and life will be celebrated this weekend in a town where she literally got her start.
It's a must-see. It really is. It's not in New York, and it's not in Hollywood. It's in Grand Rapids.
In Grand Rapids, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
Just take a look, see what it's like in there.
You know they're not quite ready yet, right?
Right.
Is that all right with you?
Sure, I would just look around.
In the past, in terms of government, what you did is write up a plan and then take it around to people and see what they thought of it. This is a different kind of process in which we go to people first and say, what do you think we ought to do?
It's the chicken egg syndrome. If you don't have the resource. That's become an issue in each county. Our presidents has to deal with. And we're currently trying to establish a program with St. Louis County to provide some of the treatment and rehabilitation.
I believe that the way you win in this business or any business is you work hard. I believe the things we've read about in the last several weeks. In fact, the first phase of the campaign is really about building a base of support within the Republican Party. First, you've got to have your base within the Republican Party, ultimately to win the Republican endorsement and then defend it if we have to in a primary.
Hey, Sean. You got it. What's going through your mind right now?
Just the fact I've been right all along and I've been still locked up, so.
Well, that's going to change, buddy.
That's all I can.
You're going home.
That's right, Julie. Sean Decking is coming out of the federal building here in Duluth right now, which is moments ago he was released, pending the sentencing, released at 1,000.
That beard made him look just like the photograph I had from Brandsburg, and that's why I had him.
You shaved off your beard?
It was off before the trial.
I know. I'm really confused. I know.
Well, this is George Rogers.
I'm just glad it's over. I'm just glad it's over. What have you been through? What were you?
Have some formal meetings and also some meetings with old friends. Today, for example, we have been to Scholastica and met with members of the Chamber of Commerce. So we have a full program for our stay here.
You couldn't even walk out there right now and go up to your knees or over your ankles. I know, and you couldn't even walk out there anywhere.
Yeah, Iowa and Minnesota, you know, southern half. How does that affect you up here?
Well, I've heard of farmers down in Iowa that plant like 2,000 acres of corn, and they haven't broke the ground this summer yet, or this spring, and well, that's going to push the corn prices up and the hay prices. If you don't get the hay up, you got to buy it. With all the flooding down south and that, the hay prices are going to be high too. So.
Severe damage. Flooring and clothes, furniture, and no flood insurance.
We're about 3 years in the making for having today happen, so we're extremely delighted to be here and to have the unveiling of the work by Kenneth Johansson called The Stone.
1 year ago, a Burlington Northern train derailed just south of Superior, Wisconsin. 3 tank cars plunged 200 feet off the tracks. One of the tankers, carrying toxic chemicals including benzene, fell directly into the Namaji River and ruptured. 20,000 gallons of the poisonous mixture gushed into the river.
Yeah, all 4 of you. Oh.
60,000 people were evacuated, frightened by an eerie chemical cloud which rose from the river and lingered over Duluth and Superior the better part of a day.
Shortly after the spill, people living around here were told that they probably didn't have much to worry about, that the long-term health risks from the spill were minimal. Well, that may have been true for most people, but it turns out a year later, it wasn't true for everyone.
Okay, honey, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Listen to how difficult it is for Carleton County Deputy Sheriff Eldon Jensen to breathe just walking to his car. The day of the spill, Jensen was 15 miles from the spill site. One of several officers directing motorists to safety. Jensen later had to be hospitalized and couldn't work for almost an entire year.
For the first, it's either 6 or 7 days. I virtually cannot tell you what happened. My wife would be able to tell you. I could not, because at that time, I was in pretty bad shape.
Jensen's doctor says the damage may be permanent.
Mr. Jensen appears to have scarring or thickening of his lungs, which is related to his being out in the spill.
State Trooper Spike Blagan is another who risked his own health in order to help others the day of the spill. Blagan directed traffic for several hours near this very spot in East Duluth, again about 15 miles from the spill. His doctor says Blagan now suffers from tracheobronchitis, a painful burning in his upper chest, directly attributed to benzene exposure.
Come on up, come on.
Ed Kruby raced around trying to get his dogs in the car the day of the spill. Kruby lives just a few miles from the accident site. As the infamous cloud approached, Kruby says he became short of breath and his chest started burning, symptoms that continue to this day. His doctor put him on steroids, and Kruby now has to carry this inhaler with him wherever he goes.
It has been continuing on exactly the same, excepting for the breathing problem is getting worse. And it's getting progressively worse fast.
Burlington Northern settled 11,000 damage claims for a total of more than $1 million after the spill. But most of the claims were for things like lost wages and lodging due to the evacuation. BN representatives and local officials continue to downplay the long-term health effects.
There is, or there will be, no long-term effects.
No long-term effects.
Correct.
There is no evidence that any human being received a sufficient enough dose of the benzene to have any long-term chronic health effects.
BN's attorney points to this study, paid for by Burlington Northern and the manufacturer of the benzene that spilled, as evidence that no one is suffering long-term problems. The study concludes there is no current or potential future health effect risks as a result of breathing the vapors from the spill. But the true impact of the spill on this community remains in dispute. Hundreds of people claiming they continue to suffer are represented in a series of lawsuits. Dr. Downs says he's seen a number of patients with spill-related illnesses ranging from asthma to bronchitis to sinus problems serious enough to require surgery.
I would be real comfortable with a number of, say, 15 to 18 where I've pursued varying sorts of medical complaints and feel that there's some things which are, probably threshold effects from the chemical spill.
After the spill, the tank cars that fell from the tracks ended up here, where they remain today, awaiting trial as potential evidence in any number of civil lawsuits. For the first time, you can now clearly see where the benzene tanker ruptured. But KARE 11 News has learned that this is not the first time that this particular car has spilled dangerous amounts of toxic chemicals.
It's welded shut now, but 4 years ago, the valve that used to be right there froze and cracked.
The Department of Transportation confirms that benzene was spilled and that 40 people had to be evacuated. One rail yard worker was overcome by fumes and needed a doctor's care. According to the Federal Railroad Administration, there were close to 3,000 train accidents in the United States in 1991. More than 500 accidents involved hazardous materials. In Minnesota, there were 128 total accidents, the fourth highest state figure in the country. Critics say not even the most infamous rail accident in this area's history, the benzene spill, is being taken seriously by local authorities, and that people are suffering because of it.
The worst problem is that nobody's listening. And if these people are seriously ill, if there are serious side effects, then somebody had better damn well be concerned and do something about it.
Until something is done, the chemical cloud that lingered over these tracks last year will be gone, but a cloud of uncertainty may never go away.
It's impossible to tell what's out there. Anything that's in a septic system is potentially, when it's flooded, is potentially there for you to ingest if you're out swimming. So you don't want to be swimming around flooded septic systems.
To celebrate the heritage of the North Shore, so that we have, I think we definitely have something to celebrate, and it gives us an opportunity once a summer.
It's our hope that our business is growing so fast with the additional lines of 18 Using items, and then the Mexican, and then other items that will follow, because we have some others that we have in mind, that we could go back and negotiate again on Hibbing.
Take a stand against anti-Semitic behavior, against...
I didn't lose the money, but I trust them, but then I double check when I come home. That was a book, I hope within a year I would be writing sometime, which is called, I have that one book called How the West Make $100 Million in a Hurry.
On your mark, get set.
You might think the lumberjack has a forgotten profession, a skill no longer required in our society. Yet every year, hundreds come to Hayward, Wisconsin to compete in the World Lumberjack Championships.
Well, we do have a college professor who's a very, very fine competitor. We have a lot of tree surgeons. We have a lot of loggers. And they're all, one of our fellows, Mike Sullivan, for example, has been a baseball player, professional. And so they are very accomplished, knowledgeable, intellectual people.
Professionals and semi-pros compete in log rolling, speed climbing, and sawing. Now, in today's lumber industry, the axe has long since given way to the chainsaw, but some of these lumberjacks will tell you the attraction is in the blood.
It's hereditary for me. My father and my grandfather were both competitors in New Zealand and in the timber industry, and I guess it's in my blood. And I've been competing for 43 years, and just about over the hill, but I still enjoy coming.
Few of the competitors can actually remember the traditional lumberjack, but most agree the competition is a good way to relate to the early American pioneer. And even though the events are much more controlled and sophisticated than what the original lumberjacks experienced, the competition and physical workout are making lumberjacking one of the fastest growing sports around.
It's just a good all-American type of a sport, and in a way we're preserving an American heritage. What we're doing here was done years ago, so it's just sort of, I think it's just sort of neat that we keep the use of these old tools alive.
In Hayward, Derek Hines, News 6.
And if people are interested in helping, we can work around their schedules and we can assist them in getting there. And we'll provide the training, we'll provide the transportation to and from, and lodging and food while they're there. The Midwest has typically been where all the volunteers have come for the National Red Cross to provide disaster service. Because all of the disasters in the recent past have been on the periphery of the country, and what's happened is now the Midwest has been hit. And a lot of our disaster volunteers are right in the thick of it, and a lot of them are serving and doing a great job, but there just isn't that pool of volunteers left.
More than half of American voters say they personally know someone who is gay or lesbian. Coming out is in, even here in the Northland.
There's a movement in this country. Duluth is not excluded from that movement. Gay and lesbian people and bisexual people in this community realize that they are an important part of the community, and we are going to stand for discrimination and exclusion no longer.
And now they don't have to. As of today, an amendment to the state's Human Rights Act banning discrimination based on sexual preference or orientation takes effect, a progressive move for a progressive state.
Minnesota is one of the few states that has extended equal protection in the law to gays, lesbians, and bisexuals in education, housing, and other facets of our life.
But is this legislation really needed? Dwayne, a member of the Northland Gay Men's Center, says yes.
Previously to the amendment, it was actually legal for employers to discriminate against gays and lesbians, or in the case of public accommodations, if you went to a hotel, the proprietor could tell the gays and lesbians, well, we don't want same-sex couples sharing rooms.
Dwayne and his partner Doug are part of a growing Northland gay rights movement, whether it's protesting against national policies such as the Don't Ask, Don't Tell approach to gays serving in the military, or showing their local opposition to Duluth Mayor Gary Doty's refusal to recognize Gay Pride Week. Northland gays and lesbians are coming out in full force.
Hey, hey, ho, ho! Homophobia's got to go! Hey, hey, ho, ho!
On the agenda, using their newly won ammunition to expand and protect civil rights for the group, a move that will undoubtedly be challenged even by local officials.
This kind of lifestyle is contradictory to the life and survival of society.
A strong statement for a politician to make. The amendment specifically prohibits members of city councils or any local elected body from discriminating against gays or lesbians.
What we've been doing now is processing the crime scene, so we're photographing and collecting things. So once we complete that, we'll be able to look at all the facts and information and see if we can figure out logically what happened.
20 years or 50 years down the road if there's a leak or a problem with the landfill. Right now it'll save just about $100,000 to $150,000 a year, and they had intended to close us in '95 anyway.
Rachel.
I'd like to see you do it again, just for fun. See if you can hit it again. Oh! All right, next time.
Which he did many, many times, but it was not enough. So it was easier to physically bad.
And even if they don't get to leave a man who's bad in her, I think it used to be that, and I think it's...
We're not being enraged to what's happening. If it was a serial killer, you can bet something would have been done already. But it takes 8 murders to realize before people stand up and say, hey, this has got to stop.
As much money to improve the street to what would be considered a practically new condition. As Dick indicated, and the expectation.
Generally, the consensus is that people are extremely concerned about this, and we hope you will give this a lot of consideration before going through with it.
It was here in this home in a quiet West Duluth neighborhood that John Lindbergh brutally attacked and killed his 27-year-old wife, Roberta, with a machete. Bloody handprints smeared along the door were the first indication of the gruesome scene awaiting police when they arrived last night. Officers say the murder happened after the suspect's parents dropped off the couple's son, 3-year-old Justin, at the home. The victim went downstairs and was apparently attacked by her husband.
When the grandparents arrived, the wife says, well, your son just went out for a walk. And the wife goes down the basement to do some chore, and the grandparents hear apparently the noises of the killing in the basement.
The suspect then fled, leaving behind a bloody trail from a self-inflicted wound. Police followed the trail to Interstate 35. They were 2 blocks behind the suspect when police received word of a traffic accident at 40th Avenue West. John Lindbergh had thrown himself in front of a passing bus on the freeway in what police believe to be an apparent suicide.
We have some information that he may have made some comment to his parents when he ran from the house. That and I believe his mother made some comment that she thought that he would commit suicide.
Today, neighbors are in shock, describing the Lindberghs as a friendly and loving couple.
They were really doing a good job of raising that little boy, and very nice little boy, Justin. And so I don't understand as to what really happened.
When?
We have patients in there right now, and we don't know legally what legal ramifications would be if we close the hospital today or tomorrow, and we have to check with council and the state to find out how we go about closing the actual hospital, the acute care part.
So basically, you would like to close that hospital as soon as possible to stop the bleed financially?
That's 100% correct.
dialysis.
What they think should be addressed in this GIS. It might be water elevations on the reservoirs, minimum flow discharges out of the reservoir. It's obvious if you're discharging a lot of water out of a reservoir during the summertime that you can't maintain a recreational level upstream in the dam. So these are some of the issues that they'll be wrestling with.
Money to give her things back.
Well, thank you, Florence. This money will be used, I'm sure, in a way.
Because we're seniors ourselves, and we know that, you know, if we would lose our possessions, it would be just frightful. So we thought this was just a perfect way for us to show that we care.
Together, and they didn't know they were both going to Russia. It encompasses support from area utilities and businesses that we didn't have before. It includes strong tribal support that we didn't have before. It includes a much larger strategic planning idea.
Out of the top. A lot of on this. But
How are you?
We're ideally situated. We have plentiful parking. We're on the Skyway. It's highly visible. And more importantly, we have a wonderful staff in place.
At any time that you miss a week of work, it's starting to affect your pocketbook and your planning on what you've got to do, and especially at this time of the year when the children are going to school, it makes it that much tougher on the individuals.
I can tell you the price of air conditioning, but that's about all I can tell you.
Holy buckets.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of people here, including even working people that might be eligible for the program. And I would like to even suggest to some of them that if they're low to moderate income, that they could call and find out if they would be eligible. There are income guidelines, but it would be worth the time to check it out.
a person actually doesn't know how much they actually spend total tax on a gallon of gas, and it is high. It's getting higher. They say they need more money, so I guess all we can do is put the penny on the pump or whatever it takes, I guess.
Unfortunately, when something happens and it involves a person who's mentally ill, there's a perception, a misperception that all mentally ill people are dangerous. And that's not at all true. In fact, a very small percent of people with mental illness have a potential of being dangerous. Vast majority are mostly vulnerable to themselves.
Duluth Central Hillside, a neighborhood with a reputation for trouble, is getting nervous about gangs. Gang-related graffiti, often seen in larger metropolitan areas, is now turning up in Duluth.
Well, we haven't learned a lot about the symbols, but we have learned their gangs, two gangs, you know. And this is apparently the Vice Lord symbol.
Symbols that many neighbors want taken down.
Everybody agrees that we want to get it off the wall. Yeah. This is it. There ain't too many of them that's actually trying. The police haven't said anything about it. Well, it's just, I guess Doty said he would try to get it done, get it cleaned off the wall.
The police say they're working hard to make sure gangs don't get a foothold in Duluth.
Anti-graffiti in areas is another. We take a strong stance against gang graffiti. If there's any gang graffiti that is found, it's eliminated right away.
However, the markings on the Mesaba Avenue wall have been here almost 2 years.
Some neighborhood residents say Mesaba Avenue has become sort of a Berlin Wall, a dividing line between rival gangs. They say many of the gang members are young and much of their activity seems to be limited to this kind of graffiti. But they worry that it soon could become much worse.
We have constant problems. They feel very comfortable coming through our neighborhood and breaking into our cars and hanging out in our backyards at night. They're drunk, they write all over the wall.
Now neighbors say it's time to read the writing on the wall. Police say the people using the spray paint are only groups of teenagers that call themselves gangs, not on the scale of larger cities, but they want to make sure it doesn't go any further.
Any type of activity that they're involved in, we're gonna be there, and we're gonna be watching, and if they step over the line, we're gonna take action against them.
I'd like it off my walls because of my children, but
it's not going to force you out.
No way. It's going to take more than a bunch of little kids to get me out of this neighborhood. No, I'm not moving.
In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
Svetlana Čurčić served as our in-country interpreter when photographer Dan Roth and I toured Croatia. As a specialist in cross-cultural negotiations, she left little doubt about her feelings concerning the ongoing fighting in what was once Yugoslavia. Politicians, she said, are to blame for the continued warfare.
Okay. But in the meantime, you can just eat by telling them the same number that I'm going to put on your ID.
I'm not going to start by eating.
No?
No.
Today, Svetlana returned to the college campus in Superior. Like any new student, registration forms had to be filled out. At the dormitory where she'll stay temporarily, her room assignment.
There are actually 3 forms, which I would like you to fill out.
Not all students will be greeted with welcome signs on their doors.
Okay, let's see whether I can enter.
Svetlana is more than a student completing her doctoral studies. She'll also serve as a guest lecturer. When we finally sat down to talk, she let us know that there's little hope she'll return to her native Croatia.
Croatia is pretty much bankrupt, and the life came to surviving, not really to living. So I don't think I should spend the rest of my life surviving.
These students at UMD School of Medicine are studying to be family practice doctors. Part of their education includes an explanation of this growing problem, which is really twofold. Part of the dilemma is a shortage of family doctors. The other part is attracting those doctors once they graduate to practice in rural settings. UMD has been noted nationally for its success in both areas. Program leaders at UMD School of Medicine say the key to their success lies in selecting medical students who are from rural communities.
I'm from a small town. I'm from Two Harbors, and I guess part of me wants to go back to a town about that size, you know, 5,000 or something. And also, you get more contact. From what I've talked to different doctors, you get more contact with the patients, and you see them throughout their whole life.
But Dr. Ronald Franks, who directs UMD School of Medicine, says the solo practitioner in a small-town setting is a thing of the past. He says the system must change in order to continue providing quality care to people in small towns.
The patient walking in the door of a rural clinic wants to be assured that they have the same quality of health care, whether they're walking in a small town in southern Minnesota or walking in the Mayo Clinic.
Dr. Frank says one solution is to set up care networks served by groups of doctors willing to travel from hospital to hospital in rural areas. He encourages this type of practice among his medical students. Kansas Dubray, from a reservation near a small town in South Dakota, agrees with this concept.
You know, I'd like to give back what I received, you know, and I think this is one way that I can help improve the lives of people in the community and the reservations.
But that won't completely solve the problem. Doctors still need encouragement to practice in rural settings. Minnesota Care has established some financial incentives, including loan forgiveness programs for doctors who commit to serving in rural settings, and sources say the National Health Care Plan will add to those incentive packages. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6. For most children, school is something they either enjoy or put up with. But there are some who hate it and would rather do anything than go to class. That apparently was the case with 2 little boys in Price County, where the mother blames a hatred of school for her children's death.
We have indeed dealt with situations where kids have been so devastated that they've either said very avidly, I don't want to go to school anymore, or they've talked about very serious means to just stay away.
The experts point out not all kids who dislike school will commit suicide, but they say when children talk about killing themselves, parents should listen and look for signs of serious trouble.
To confront that youngster, to be able to say that, you know, we're concerned about you, we'd like to get some assistance for you, at least to explore what's going on.
To many of us, a child's problem may not seem severe enough for suicide, but the experts warn that children, particularly adolescents, may have fragile egos, and any threat to harm themselves should be taken seriously. Some signs of danger include a radical change in your child's demeanor or attitude, a lack of friends, a drop in grades, or an unwillingness to participate in activities. Any of these situations, coupled with a major change in family life, such as a divorce or separation, a death in the family, or a breakup of a friendship, could spell serious trouble. Parents should make an effort to get to the bottom of the trouble by talking with the child, his friends and acquaintances, and you should not hesitate to intervene.
The situation in Price County is a tragedy, but experts say it might serve to make us all more aware of some children's vulnerability. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Heavy rains and flooding early this summer got the northern Minnesota resort business off to a tough start. Even after the floodwaters receded, the myth that the entire state of Minnesota is underwater has been chasing would-be resort goers away.
You don't have any boats going out, you don't sell any bait, you don't get that off sale, that ice, the food to go out in the pontoons, that kind of stuff, so you lose all that aspect of it. So it slows you down quite a bit.
And Jowert says the resorts farther away from the city are hurting even more.
It seems the further away that you get from the city of Duluth, the slower they were, because there wasn't a lot to do if it did rain. We're so close to town they can drive into town. So the resorts on the outlying areas are hurting a lot worse than we did.
But away from town or not, resorts are dependent on good weather for good business. With the Labor Day weekend getting underway, resort owners are crossing their fingers and hoping that Mother Nature will cooperate. At Fish Lake, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Well, it means the end of a summer. I've been working here for all summer, and it's really been kind of enjoyable. It's been a fairly nice summer. Last summer was a lot colder.
This monument is part of a project of sharing and coming together of this community, the IRRRB, so many people pulling themselves together to say.
All our children are here now for this event, and my dad's great-grandchildren are also here from all over the country. So it's a special day for us. It's something my dad never anticipated.
More than 2,000 firefighters a year. It'll be the only one in the country that's a 757. That's a mock-up. It's the only one in the country that will burn in cold weather, and it'll put Duluth right on a map for aircraft fire safety.
Teacher, and I remember all those 7th graders coming into my classes on the first day and looking around, and I hope I'm not one of them. This is just a pattern of criticism that I think needs to be addressed. If Tony has some information about the superintendent's past Joliet School, let him air it. Let's not have this be underground.
We've seen a lot of spots like these from the Minnesota Office of Tourism, and there's more coming. The State Tourism Office has budgeted $150,000 to promote the fall season, and judging from the response rate, it looks like it's working.
We expected a response rate on this of about 2,500 or 4%. As of yesterday, we had 10,900 responses.
The television campaign promotes the whole state, but a recent mailing highlights the Northland and all there is to do here in the fall. Meanwhile, the city of Duluth suffered through a less than great summer season as well, with just over 3 million vacationers.
We estimate with the $3.2 million that about $113 million will come into the Duluth economy for this year. That's about an increase of about 5% over last year.
The 5% increase in Duluth's tourism rate may sound good, but when you compare it to the 8 to 10% increases shown over each of the past several years, you realize the city was indeed impacted by this summer's wet weather.
The Duluth Convention and Visitors Bureau is also hoping to make up some of its losses through fall visitors, and next month plans to ask the City Council to increase its share of the hotel-motel tax from 25% to 35% of the pot. Their argument is more money to promote would bring in more visitors, thereby helping the entire area. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
We're talking to her about the fire. We have no idea at this point if it's a arson fire or accidental or what the cause of the fire was.
But you have taken a woman into...
We have been detained, yes, and talked to in reference to the fire.
Okay. Why her?
Apparently she has made threats in the past to burn the building.
Name an animal besides a bird that migrates. Yes?
One of the first things you notice about Larry Weber is his enthusiasm.
How would you like to have wings as thick as that piece of paper and then fly all the way from Duluth to Mexico with those wings?
And you can't help but notice how much he loves his subject.
Well, he's not like other teachers, you know, he's kind of, sometimes he can get a bit queer, but, you know, that's really cool.
Weber hopes his love of science will rub off on his students, and that the interest in the subject begun now will stay with them as they get older.
It's a neat subject, and I just think there's a lot of beautiful things out in nature to take a look at, and I'd like to think that whatever we picked up this year can stick with us.
A hope that appears to be working.
In my past schools, science has been really boring, and the teachers, they didn't enjoy the subject, and neither did I. And I'm really getting interested in this year.
Mr. Weber says there's one reason he's an award-winning science teacher. He loves science, and it shows. At the Marshall Middle School, Barbara Riles, News 6.
zeros, and you're going to vote for 2 in this category and 2 in that category. Yeah, just you put it inside of here.
Okay, I'll take the pen, and you just put this in here. Oh. Then I'll just double it up.
Okay.
Then we're all through.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Captain shows up.
Biscuits are burning. We gotta have 4 of us carrying him, right?
It translates very well to a real-life situation, and what we're practicing again is the communication between the various agencies and the coordination between the various emergency response agencies. There is a lot of benefit from doing this.
Hey, wait, you're doing a good job. Mac, you want to? Hey. You said you were worse than me.